So today we are talking about the Shimano Vanford, how it performs on the water, what I like about the reel, whether or not I think the reel is balanced or not. And if you're in the market for a new reel, we're giving one away. Let's get into it. So I've been using the Shimano Vanford for around about 2 months now, and I've got to say I've actually quite enjoyed using the reel. The Vanford is a replacement for the really popular CI4 Plus in that stradic range that has really had a cult following in the last 5 to 7 odd years. It's pretty cool to see the CI4 go under the rebranding to the Vanford, because I reckon the stradic series was getting a little bit confusing. And I say that because there's a bunch of different models in that series now, the FL, the SW, FJ, the CI4 Plus. And to be honest, that was a little bit crowded and confusing whenever I found myself in a fishing store. So to see this series get split is definitely not a bad thing. And now it's got its own title. In terms of colors, the reel maintains its iconic red and black, which is what we previously saw with the CI4, but I will say the finish of the reels I feel is a little bit different with this model. Feels like it's got a little bit more of a matte finish than a glossy one, and truthfully I actually prefer a little bit more gloss, but if you're a fan of that carbon fiber type look, then visually this reel will appeal to you. So I've been throwing around the 2500 HG size, which I reckon is probably going to be one of their biggest sellers, that 2500 size in this reel. And it comes stock with 9 kilos of drag, which is pretty standard, pretty average in that 2500 size range. One of the main things that I did notice straight away about using the reel was how easy the handle was to turn over. It's quite smooth and effortless to use. And pleasantly, I wasn't the only one to notice. When my wife had a bit of a go at it, she was on the boat, she's been out a couple of times and used the reel. That was one of the first things that she mentioned. She basically said how easy and smooth and light the reel was to get to action. Slightly off topic though, and on the topic of my wife, she did actually say after using it for a few outings that she would like to keep one. So she's going to keep this one here, and we're going to give away a brand new one that's in the box. In terms of the specifics of the reel and the line and spool in particular, it is a shallow class of spool. It's got a long stroke spool that I'll come back to. I've got something to say about it, but I initially loaded it in these shots here with 150 meters of Goosen braid. Now Goosen is very much a high-end braid. It's 14 pound, but it is super thin. And I found that at the end of that 150 meters that I was completely underspooled, and you can see that in these photos here. And that made sense when I went back to the box and actually had a look at what the rated line capacity was for the reel. Got a capacity of 160 meters at 0.25 diameter. Now to give you a bit of an idea, that 0.25 is equivalent to about 30 pound J braid from Daiwa. So the fact that I was putting line on that was like a fraction of that meant that of course I was going to be underspooled in line. So what to all of that is if you're operating on super thin line, or you've got braid, or you're planning to put braid on that is 15 pound or less, you're really going to need to consider some backing to the spool. That being said, the other option, and I think the viable one, is to put more line on it, you know, like a 300 meter spool or something like that. The benefit you'll get there is that this reel will become a very versatile all-rounder reel. If you've got that amount of line on it, you can chase, you know, kingfish in the harbour, jewfish, and those larger species from rock walls or land-based fishing. And I think that type of fishing will be really up the Vanford's alley. So like I said, initially during the testing, I had it underspooled, and what I've got now is 16 pound Tas line on it. And I've got close to 300 meters of it. Tas line itself is generally a thinner line, but whilst it'll be technically my wife's reel on the boat, I'll probably end up using it as a bit of an all-rounder. Now I did kind of touch on it before, but there is an important point here on the weight distribution of the reel as well that I'll get to in a sec, so bear with me. Now, at a retail price of $370, I reckon, truthfully, it's about $70 off where it needs to be. And I think the market's already corrected for that. If you go online and search for Vanford reels today, in August 2021, you will find them going for around about 300 Australian dollars. So you could argue that the market's already made the adjustment, But I did speak to 2 different tackle store owners about this. One basically said that the reel was generally priced well with all the features that are on it, including the X-Protect and the stuff that blocks the salt water out, and given that it is a composite body as well. I'll get to that in a second, but the other one did say that it was overpriced for the market that had made the CI4 Plus popular. With all of that being said though, there are a bucket load of features. There's the micro module 2 gearing, the MGL rotor technology that makes it lighter to turn, and it does generally feel like a high-end reel. The box does say it's 48% lighter to turn and more effortless, and I 100% agree with that. I do find generally in the saltwater environment, when you're using a reel over a couple of months, that you do see some sort of decay in that action, or the ease of, I guess, turning of that handle, and I didn't find that that happened at all using the reel. I thought that X-Protect, that water resistant technology that they've got on it, worked a treat, and the reel does really feel and look like it is still new. The last point I make on the design before I come back to the price is its composite body. Now that's what made the CI4 and the CI4 Plus really stand out. It was the composite body and the way that that composite body resisted salt water and the resistance to corrosion here, particularly given the Australian conditions that we have here that are a little bit more harsh than the freshwater stuff that guys have over in the US. I think it's awesome, and if you're operating that saltwater environment, it is 100% a must. To be critical of this though, there are a number of brands that are doing it for much cheaper, like the Daiwa Freems LT that I'll link up here, and I did a review on that if you're interested in seeing that as well. That reel up there is about 1/3 of the price of this reel, and that's probably one of the big reasons as to why I say that $300 mark is much better than the $370. And like I mentioned before, the market's already making that correction. You can get this reel for $300 online. Now, before we get into my last point, if you're keen to walk away with this brand new Vanford 2500 size reel, unopened, still in the box, well, here's your opportunity. All you need to do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below on your favorite size spinning reel and what type of braid size that you would put on this reel if you were to win it. I'll announce the winner in a week from today, so get into it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below on your favorite size spinning reel, as well as what braid size that you throw on it. And this reel right here could be yours. All right, so there's 2 points I want to finish on. One really good and one constructive. The first is the drag on the reel. The 9 kilos of drag I mentioned before is really quite smooth in the way that it engages and peels the line off the reel. There wasn't any jerkiness about the way that the drag engaged or disengaged. It was quite smooth, it was all proportionate, and it felt really good. And I think that's quite fitting of the Vanford. Everything in terms of the technical aspects of how it performs, how it feels, how the drag works, the weight of the reel, how the reel actually functions, are quite good and above average, exactly what you'd expect for the price that's been put on the reel. The last point has got to do with the balance of the actual reel itself and how it feels in the hand when you're winding it. And it was a little bit surprising. It wasn't a trait that I saw in the CI4 Plus or the other reels or the other Shimanos that I've got, but I feel it's got to do with the idea that this spool has been extended to make it a shallow spool. Now, a shallow spool is really advantageous because it means that the line peels off the reel quite easy and you get longer casting distances with it. What I think's happened though is that this reel or the spool has been extended just a little bit too far top ways. And that for me makes it feel unbalanced and top heavy. Makes this left hand want to continually fall off and forward when I am reeling, and I can really feel it about there, about the top of the stroke. Now, truthfully, I reckon that's only 50-50, and that is generally the one point that I can feel on the reel. Now, admittedly, that's me making a bunch of different assumptions on why I think the weight is kind of a little bit forward and why it feels a little bit out of balance to me, but reels are often quite personal. People like one brand over another, they like a feel of one reel over another. I half expect that most of you guys will try this reel, put it on a rod in the store, give it a bit of a go, and be super happy with how that reel functions, how it feels in the hand when you turn it, and you'll be quite happy with it. I think if that's the only constructive point I can find on this reel, well then it's a bloody good reel. With all of that in mind, for me, is this the reel that will make me choose to sell all the other reels on the boat or the kayak and, you know, change to the Vanford? Probably not. I do think if you're a Shimano fan and you're a fanboy of this series, you're gonna really like the Vanford. I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay safe. Remember the giveaway. I'll see you next time.